So in today's episode of I'm Breaking Up with Perfectionism, I'm coming to you with the greasiest hair known to man. I have breast milk all down the front of my shirt because I spilled milk right before I needed to record, but I'm showing up anyway. And half of you aren't even going to see me on video, so it's fine. I have thoughts about the Faire Summer Market, and I couldn't wait a second longer to record this. I'm recording it a few days before this episode airs, so this is in real time. And I want to talk about Faire Summer Market, fair markets in general, but in particular, what happened in this past couple weeks, summer market, July 2026. I've been just doing some research and checking out online, very deeply scraping the internet. I use this app called Appify to scrape Reddit threads, Instagram, Facebook groups to just kind of get a temperature check of what brands and retailers, independent retailers are saying about Faire Summer Market. Also talking to my students, and I collected some feedback, some thoughts, formed my opinion on what's going on in retail right now. And I want to do a couple things today. I want to first talk about what happened at market underneath that highlight reel or a low light reel, because there was a lot of complaining happening on social. I also want to talk about what this means for the next few months, because market week is not where the selling stops. And then I want to do a little mindset chat, a little bit of takeaways, things you can be doing right now to make sure that you're setting yourself up for a successful Q4 or holiday selling period, whether you had a good fair market or not. So let's get into the chat.
Real quick before we jump in, if you're pitching retailers but second guessing what to say, when to say it, or how to follow up without feeling like you're being totally annoying, you need the Buyer Side Pitch Kit. It arms you with everything you need to confidently pitch all types of retailers, from independent boutiques to mid-size to big box stores, because yes, they all expect something a bit different and at different times. You're going to get the Buyer Side Pitch Pal, which is your own AI pitch assistant trained by me, a seasoned corporate and independent retail buyer, to write your pitch and follow-up emails for you in your unique brand voice. Plus, you're going to get an entire kit of buyer back strategies, perfectly timed pitch plans, and plug and play email templates that sound just like your brand, but maybe just a bit more polished and a bit more persuasive. You're also going to get 2 awesome bonuses, the follow-up formula and a pitch cadence calendar, so you can map out exactly what to send and when to send it and when to follow up. The Buyer Side Pitch Kit will absolutely make pitching so much easier for you. And the best part, it's not even $100. So just hit the link in the show notes or DM me Pitch Kit on Instagram at Kristen Fisher Coaching, and I will send it your way. All right, now let's get into the chat.
Okay, before we go any further, I need you to sit with something. I need you to hear me right now. No matter what your market looked like, no matter what it looked like, if it was really good, if it sucked, if it was somewhere in the middle, no matter what your market performance was, it does not decide whether or not you are capable of running a successful wholesale business. Your market performance is no indication of your brand success, your ability to run a successful business, the future of your brand. It's just a singular point in time. It's one data point on a much longer game. So I want you to take any feels out of the conversation, put those aside. Maybe you've already worked through them, but I just want you to come at this with a business lens, with your brand founder hat on, and not the feeling of self-doubt hat. We're going to just throw that away. We're not here for that. Okay. Let's talk about what actually happened with this past Faire Summer Market 2026. Okay. I will say this isn't that different from what I saw last summer market. So I just want to preface it with that. I went back to my notes to just kind of remind myself of what last year's market was like. There are some differences. There are some unique things that are interesting, but I don't think it's that much different, quite frankly. So here's the overarching thing that I was seeing. So the pattern I saw across social media, and I already mentioned some of the places I looked, but it was Threads, Instagram, Reddit, some Facebook groups. Those are the 4 main areas that I was looking at. The pattern I was seeing there, and also within my own student group, the Faire Bootcamp Back Pocket membership, and also clients, was this. Brands that did really intentional pre-market prep, meaning they started early. They weren't scrambling at the last minute. Maybe they were a little bit, but like they started thinking about this 6 to 8 weeks ago, started easing into it. They did real market prep. They built their email list. They pitched, they scheduled campaigns. They set up their automations that are new this year. They pushed their direct link. Those brands had strong markets. Some of them had their best market ever, which was awesome. Some of them had like a decent exceeded expectations market. They all have things that they're saying, oh, I wish I had done this, or I'm going to do more of this next year, because we always do that. But they all had really solid market weeks. Brands who showed up a little last minute, didn't put in the groundwork, or they did some things, but they didn't focus on pitching. They really just focused on like getting their shop to look good, right? They maybe heard silence, didn't have great performance, 0 visits, 0 orders. And I could feel that there was a lot of genuine frustration in their comments on social media. There's a lot of that. So here's what I want to talk about, right? In my own Faire Bootcamp Back Pocket call that I just hosted right after market wrapped up, I asked the group how it went, and the general The general consensus was almost identical to what I was seeing online, which is always interesting whenever that happens. Like I have a smaller pool of people, but I'm looking at then the broader group on social media. It wasn't, for most people, it was not their best market ever. Some people did. And I think I want to highlight this because those are the posts that often get a lot of traction and go viral, or they show up on your feed and you're like, oh, well, cool. All these people had this really great market and mine sucked. Okay. I just want to point that out, that it's like most people didn't have their best market ever, but also most people didn't have their worst one either. It was kind of a middle of the road market. And what I think is interesting, as I started to kind of like peel this back a little bit more, it feels that, or it seems that most brands that did well were a little bit more established, and they didn't necessarily have a lot of new buyers coming to them. They did have new buyers coming to them, but a lot of it was repeat retailers, repeat customers coming back and ordering from them again. So I just think that that's really interesting, and I want to just give some context around that. One of my members, or one of my clients, I should say, we were talking about the effort that she had put into all the pitching that she had done. And she was like, oh my God, I feel like there was a waste of time. It was a waste of time. Hardly any of them converted. I saw they had open carts, but they weren't converting. And I don't know, next year, next market, like I don't know if I want to spend that much effort on pitching, because I had actually a good market, but it all came from repeat. And I said, okay, let's take a look at your repeat to new retailers for January market and your last year's summer market, and let's compare. And she had a much higher repeat rate this year than she did in those past 2 markets. And that's interesting, because what I like to always say is, let's not isolate this one market. Let's look at the bigger picture. And if you have more history in terms of your selling on Faire with these markets, it's really important to look at this market's performance, your analytics, your data, not just your orders, not just order count and revenue, but also look at traffic and repeat versus new retailers, your conversion rate, your average order value. Look at all these things, because it's all information. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But where I'm going with this right now is, it's easy to say, I shouldn't do this next year because that was a total waste of my time. But actually, this is just an anomaly. I think that there was a big shift in terms of repeat versus new, with repeat retailers reordering or coming back and ordering your new product at a higher rate than typically we would see, because the market is more conservative right now. So we've been seeing this all year with retailers, particularly small independent retailers, buying more frequently, smaller orders more frequently. They're being really conservative with their spend, and they're buying enough to get through a shorter window of selling. They're going to see how it sells. They're going to buy some more. It's really a risk averse market. So that continued to play out in market season. So I think overall, what I'm understanding from gut instinct, what we've been seeing year to date, and also what I found in terms of my research when it came to independent retailers and what they were saying online, is that they were being tighter with their spend and they were taking less risks. They were buying into brands that they already felt confident in. They've already bought from them before. Now, what's interesting, I saw this with some of my own clients, and I'm curious for you too. I had a lot of clients where they said, I had retailers that have not bought from me, that I have not even pitched in years, or some of them did re-engage their email list, but these retailers had not bought from them in years, and they came back and bought. So that furthers my assumption that retailers are not taking big risks right now, and they're going back to the well of, okay, what brands have sold well for me in the past? We're going to bring their product back. So whether they are current retailers or past retailers, they are looking for known to them brands. So nurturing those retailers is really important. And that's going to really be a key thing for you as you're going into the holiday season. Typically, I'd say you need to be getting new retailers, new buyers. That's what I was going for. You need to be getting new buyers into your world because you need a larger pool of people that are going to buy from you. That is still true. That is just a numbers game. That's business. That's D2C. That's wholesale, right? You need more people in your top of your funnel to actually get your conversion rate up. That's not changing. But the importance of nurturing and touch points with your existing retailers, whether they are currently buying from you right now, or they've bought from you or haven't bought from you in the last 1 to 2 to even 3 or 4 years. You have them in your database, so you want to be reaching back out to them and really nurturing them. So what I think is interesting is it kind of puts us all into some context, right? Your market results don't happen in a vacuum. They don't happen in a vacuum. They happen inside a specific retail climate. And that climate right now is very clearly defined. And I say that it's similar to last summer market because this isn't that far off from what was happening last year, where retailers were a little bit more conservative, although I think that they were more conservative last year versus this year. This year feels like last year, except from where I sit, if I was buying right now, I would say I kind of know what I'm getting myself into because we know who we've got in the government. We know what's going on. Yes, new things have been happening, but we know what we're working with. So based on that, the retail climate, the economy isn't that much different than it was. And so I'm going to buy similarly to the way I did last year, and I will just buy closer to the date. So if I was buying, I would have bought from known brands, and I would have waited. I would identify what maybe more risk product or things that I don't necessarily need to get into right away, meaning buy into right away. I would just be tabling that, keeping my cart open or using my little hidden board, my likes board, favorites boards in Faire, and just saying, I'm going to buy these when it gets a little bit closer. So I was looking back, I had an email. Faire had published its own independent retail report. It came out right at the same time as market. So I flagged it. And I was like, I'm going to go back and look at this. So I just went back and looked at it before hitting record on this. And something really stood out to me that I was like, I have to bring this in. So it's just interesting. It came out during market week. So this does not have any market data. This is just kind of up until, I don't even know what date. It said it was a Q2 report. So I'm going to assume the end of June, probably total Q2. So it also wasn't clear, these stats, if it's year to date, Q1 and Q2, or if it's just Q2. So take this with a grain of salt, but at minimum, it's all of Q2 2026. So 59% of brick and mortar retailers globally increased their wholesale purchasing, and physical stores grew spend around 19% year over year, roughly double the growth rate of online only retailers. That's huge. That's huge. We have not seen brick and mortar retailer outpacing e-commerce in years. So I think it's a really interesting tidbit. It's also really good news because independent retail is not shrinking. So that gives us a lot of confidence. They also had noted in here that there's really been this shift going back to physical retail stores. And in the US in particular, it's historically been really predominant, I would say predominantly metropolitan city, heavily foot trafficked areas where brick and mortar has been doing better, but they actually are seeing a shift where small town or smaller town retail, particularly in the Sun Belt. And so if you're in the US, that's like Alabama, Florida, warmer states that are seeing a shift. There's a lot of reasons for why that could be, but I just want to note that the dollars are there. Independent retail is doing better than expected, which is really, really exciting. There's also that hesitancy of like, what's going to happen in Q4? What's holiday going to look like? We always run into that, and retailers are always like a little anxious at this time, but they are buying. And I'm curious for you, if you maybe had a spike in orders in June, like right before summer market, and you're probably confused, like why in the world are these retailers buying right before they're about to get a discount? And that further proves the theory that they are buying more frequently and tighter buys because they couldn't wait until market to place their buys and then get inventory later. They needed it now because they don't have enough to float them through. But when they're buying more selectively. They're ordering closer to their actual need. They're leaning on brands and products that they already trust. That's exactly why the brands that had that existing retailer relationship base and did that prep work had a really different market than the brands who showed up cold. And that's not anything random, right? That is just the climate that we're in. And perhaps a year ago, I would have been saying you need to be out there pitching and getting tons of new retailers into your bank so that you can be growing and not relying on your existing retailer relationships because they're buying a lot less. But actually, this year is the reverse. And so it's why you need to be just really nimble and flexible. And it's why retail keeps us on our toes. This year, you need to be really nurturing those existing retailer relationships. And if you're listening to me and you're saying, I'm newer, I don't have a lot of existing retailers, like the 5 that have ordered from me cannot be the growth plan that I have, I hear you. And so this is where you have to take that little bit of a caveat and say, okay, I don't actually have a big foundational retailer base. So how can I instead build trust for new retailers? So when I'm pitching, how am I making my pitches stand out and position me as a brand that they can trust, as product that they can trust? That means making sure you're identifying those retailers that are actually aligned for your brand. And this goes even actually, as I'm rambling here, this goes even if you are a brand with an existing retailer base. As you are pitching, pitch less to stronger retailers. That, when I say stronger, more aligned retailers, more aligned for you, because that is going to inherently build trust because you're going to be the perfect aesthetic for them. So do your research. Instead of pitching 50 retailers, pitch 20 that are perfectly aligned for you and spend the time to follow up and build that trust, show back up in their inbox and continue to pitch. You have plenty of time to still be pitching for holiday because we're just getting started. This is really the beginning of market season. So there's a lot of selling left to be had. If you are feeling like you are not confident with your pitches, you don't know when or how or what to say to stand out and build that trust. That is exactly why I built the buyer side pitch kit. So you should definitely get your hands on that. It's going to give you the timing. It's going to give you scripts. It's going to give you insights from the buyer's side of the table to help you have pitches that actually convert. There's also a really awesome tool in there that will write your pitches for you that are unique to your brand. And it's going to give you an exact timeline of when to pitch and when to follow up. So definitely get your hands on that if pitching is something that you need to be putting some more effort into over the coming months and going into the next year. So knowing that market was kind of hit or miss, but the brands that did well did some certain things right. And also knowing all the things that I saw when I was searching and sleuthing through the internet, I want to give you a couple of tweaks that you could make or things to keep in mind as you are going into the rest of the holiday season. Okay. And also just in general, things to keep in mind. But these are the things that came out the most in my scraping. And when I say scraping, I said at the top of the episode, I use an app called Appify that is a connector within my Claude. And it goes out and actually just does all of this scraping for me. And I pulled together some common themes that I wanted to just group together for you because these were said across the board, different niches, but all related to Faire Market, coming from retailers. Okay. So the first thing I want to make sure, cannot stress this enough, get your direct link in front of your retailers. So surprisingly, I was actually really surprised to see this because I feel that at least everybody in my Faire Bootcamp back pocket community, they are all pushing that direct link. But buyers were saying over and over that they were actively looking for brands' direct links before ordering because they actually know that it keeps money in your pocket. But a lot of them couldn't find it. And it's so interesting to me. I almost didn't believe it. I had to go double check myself. You need to be making sure that it is front and center, top of mind, especially during market season. So maybe if you normally wouldn't put that in your link in bio on Instagram, although you probably should always have it there, but make sure that it's at the top of your website or your wholesale sales page on your existing personal website, right? Having it on your Instagram bio, in your stories, on your mailers, make sure you are putting it out there so that they get it. Now, this means that these comments were coming from probably more established retailers that are aware of the commission. This does not solve the issue of all the retailers that don't know that even is a thing because they do not know. Newer retailers do not know this. And that is this new era of wholesale that Faire has kind of ushered in for us, where newer retailers that don't have a more traditional buying background or are new to the scene, they only know Faire, and then they might be lucky to go to a trade show, but they don't have to anymore, right? So they use Faire as their main buying platform, and they don't understand how wholesale works on the brand side. So this is not solving that. Faire is never going to be saying to these new retailers, hey, by the way, if you use a brand's direct link, they're not going to have to pay commission. They're never going to say that because it's a business. Why would they say that? And you can say all you want to say about Faire, but they're never going to say that because they are trying. That's how they make money, right? They are telling you as a brand to use it because they know it's a great benefit for you. And the more retailers you bring in, the more money they're going to be making, right? In theory, but they want those marketplace orders. Let's call a spade a spade. So retailers are only going to know about a direct link if you tell them. Okay, that was my little soapbox. Make sure you get your direct link in front of your retailers and don't be afraid to resend it. When you're doing follow-ups in the middle of market or in the holiday season, resend your Faire direct link to those retailers that have not bought from you yet. Okay. Tweak 2. This is a big one. I'm not surprised that I saw this on here, but I saw it more than I have been. So it's interesting that it's gaining some traction. AI generated art and photography. Now, I flat out asked Faire, what episode was that? When I interviewed the Faire CMO, I'll link it in the episode in the show notes, but I asked her, what are we doing about this? What are we doing about AI generated art on the platform? Because I was seeing it more and I'm just hearing more and more about it becoming a problem. They are aware of it. They're working on putting more flags in place to be able to filter that out and block those products from being able to be sold, but they can only move so fast. And we know AI is moving at a rapid pace. So if you're listening and you happen to have AI generated art, I would just put some thought into whether or not that is the business track that you want to be going down. But on another side that I know a lot of you use is AI touched up or AI designed product photography. And here's what I'll say about that. Your photography is becoming increasingly important when it comes to buying decisions. I mean, just like you as a consumer buy with your eyes, that is how your buyers are. And buyers really rely heavily on your photography and your videography because they can't see it in person, which is a huge disadvantage as a buyer to not be able to see it. And so the photography is really important. That said, I understand not everybody has the budget for these big, beautiful lifestyle images. So you need to have real photography up for every single product. I don't care. Use your iPhone, edit it with some great lighting, or you have great lighting and then edit it. You can edit it on your phone and have it look great. I did a ton of photography for Boku on my phone and I always got complimented on my photography. And I'm like, it's just me doing it with my iPhone. I just got really good at it. So you need to have real imagery for your products. That said, if you need to have some lay down images or you're having issues with that annoying banner on your Faire page, you can use AI photography for that. ChatGPT has gotten so good with image generation, but you just need to be careful that your whole page doesn't look like one big AI generated brand, because that is very obvious. You can spot that, right? Like you can tell whenever AI has been involved in imagery. And the retailers that were talking about this on Threads specifically, I saw more than one retailer say if they can't quickly tell whether your imagery is AI, they are not going to buy from you. So they need to see, okay, this is real product. This is a real brand. Maybe they did this mock-up using AI, but I can tell that they have real product. This is where videography and like doing images or videos, even just like quick ones on your phone, is really, really helpful for conversion. Your captions, or not captions, why did I say that? Your product descriptions, there we go. Your product descriptions, those do the selling for you. If they have extra questions, if they're not quite sure, if they want to get more details, they will then look at the captions. Photography pulls them in. Your captions, oh my gosh, I said it again. Your product descriptions do the selling for you. They also are driving that algorithm. And so I would say they're even more important for the algorithm. Never compare yourself to really big brands out there, because big brands don't need their captions to do anything for them because they're a known brand. So the captions don't really matter. Oh my God, I said it a third time. You guys, old me would have gone back and re-recorded. I'm not re-recording it. We're keeping it in. This is the perfection. I'm just working on the perfectionism, but I mean, when I say captions, I mean product descriptions. Oh my God. Okay. So this is probably what the fourth one, the fourth little tweak or thing that I just want to note here is I saw multiple brands. So up until now, I've been really speaking about what the retailers were saying, but now I'll say that I saw a lot of brands kind of complaining about their email campaigns not going through. And they're like, I'm spending this time getting emails out there and the skip rate, the bounce rate's really high. This is really annoying. I'm being limited. What's the point? Well, the thing is, if you are not using the native Faire email campaigns throughout the year in non-market windows, you're going to be more suppressed. And they're prioritizing those brands that are using their email marketing system throughout the year in non-market windows. So you're at a bit of a disadvantage because not only are you not being prioritized, but also there's so much more competition because everybody suddenly uses the email campaigns on the platform during market season, as they should, or the market window, I should say, as they should. But Faire does limit the number of emails that a retailer gets in their inbox every day, and you can only send one campaign a week. So there is strategy around that we talk about inside the bootcamp. But in terms of your email efforts, start using that now so that as you're going into the holiday season, you are getting your email campaigns in those retailer inboxes. And know that, of course, you're going to have a higher skip rate during market because there's just more competition. So it's not only more important for you to be emailing campaigns during non-market time periods. Also, it's important to be building your wholesale email marketing list off the platform so you can own emails. You obviously can only get emails for your direct customers or your direct retailers, but you can also ask for their email address for marketplace retailers and email them through your Klaviyo or whatever platform you use outside of it. That's why it's even more important, because you then own that and you have control of that. And then you can just use Faire as kind of an extra added bonus, an extra added touch point. Lastly, I'll say Faire launched their email automations this year. Thankfully, that's going to really help you. It does not use up your one email campaign per week limit. So there's no harm in putting them on. There's so many benefits to it. They're so fast and easy. There are ways that you can really tweak them and have them stand out from all the other brands that are just turning them on and calling it a day. So I did put together a free Faire email automations guide for you that walks you through all 12 of the email automations. There are 3 more than the podcast episode I did a couple weeks ago because things are happening fast. But I'll put that link in the show notes. It walks you through setting all of them up, what they are, when they're sent, why they're sent, how you can customize them to be unique to your brand. It just kind of walks you through so you can get that all set up and not have to even think about it. So that's just an added benefit to help your conversion. Okay. So emails, making sure that you are playing the game, essentially. You need to play the game in order to get the algorithm in your favor, whether it's traffic, whether it's your ads or your promoted listings performance, whether it's your emails. You have to play the game, but it also has to make sense for you and your brand and your efforts. What you get out of it is what you put into it, but you have to be smart about, you can't do everything. So pick a lane on what's actually most important for you and what you have time to do without burning yourself out, which really leads me into this mindset shift that I just want to kind of end this on. So market week is always loud. It's always intense. There's always a lot of pressure that is put on Faire Market. We need to take our own power back here. We cannot put all of our eggs in the Faire Market basket. It is just, like I said, one point in time. It does not indicate your brand's success, your ability to be fabulous at what you do, creative and talented and a smart business owner. It does not discount that at all, whether you had a good market or not. If you had a good market, also, just check yourself too, because that doesn't mean that the rest of your season is going to be great. You still have to put the effort in. There's a lot of selling time left. The Atlanta market this year was earlier than it's ever been in June because of the World Cup. So that was an interesting market. Typically, Atlanta kind of kicks it off or is right around the time of Faire Market. But those two, we'll say, shows are really the start of market season. You've got 2+ more months of selling. So there's a lot left to have happen. But I want you to think about, what did you just walk through? How did you feel? Were you feeling up and down, up and down, up and down? One day good, one day bad, one day good, one day bad. Is that how you felt? Did you feel crappy the entire time? Were you riding a high the whole time? Take note of the weight that you put on the Faire Market emotionally, and just make note of that for next year. How can you go into market saying, okay, I've done these 3 things and the results are the results. I can't expect that it's going to define my entire year. Now it might, and that's great. It's not always going to happen though. You have to be pitching and doing things leading up to it for it to actually have a good result. We're also not going to blame Faire for not having a good market. That's just, the algorithm is the algorithm. And like I said, we have to play to that. And again, Faire is not the end all be all, but also It's a platform with hundreds of thousands of retailers at your fingertips. So you do with it what makes sense for you and your business. But we can't entirely play the blame game if we're not doing all the things leading up to it that are going to position ourselves in a place where you're actually going to see a really strong market. So there's a couple things here, but the biggest thing is your worth, your worthiness, the weight that we put on the sales. You need to separate the two. And I had somebody in my DMs, I can't think of the name of the brand. She was so sweet, but she was like, well, what am I, if it's not sales, like what am I looking at in terms of success or not seeing success? What I'll say is look at, like I said at the beginning of this episode, look at your metrics from prior markets and compare your metrics from this market. Also look at your year-to-date performance. Your data from this past market will tell you something, good or bad. It's going to tell you, do you need to focus on getting more traffic? Did you have an increase in your average order value overall, but less traffic? Well, that means you probably would have had maybe a better market if you just had more traffic in theory, right? Just looking at your different metrics will tell you where the bottleneck was at, where you did have some success. So maybe there are little bright spots that you can focus on and say, okay, this actually worked. If I just tweak this other thing, this actually could be a perfect storm to get my next market to be better. Write it down now while it's fresh in your mind. You just came off of it. Write it down now so that you know going into winter market and all the way into next year for summer market, because we know each market can perform differently for you based on your niche or your product type or your aesthetic, right? Different seasonality works differently for different brands. Write down what worked, what didn't, what you would change or do differently, what you would do the same, and maybe just do more of. And also write down how you felt, whether you want to feel that way again or you don't want to feel that way again, right? Your well-being is the most important thing as you're going through this. Otherwise, why are we in business for ourselves? We could just work for corporate retail. Don't recommend it. Keep working for yourself. But it's all about protecting your mindset and knowing that you've got an awesome brand, and Faire or any other marketplace cannot dictate that. That is something that we just have to keep working on and fine-tuning as business owners and taking control of what we control and let go of the things that we cannot. So with that, I will leave you until the next chat.
Hey friend, quick question for you. Are you feeling stuck with how to get your brand to stand out on Faire? I'm asking you because as a buyer myself, I can tell you that there are just so many brands out there vying for the attention of these buyers, but I know that your brand has something so special and it needs to be seen. I put together a private podcast for you that goes deeper into what buyers are really looking for on the Faire platform and how you can stand out from the crowd to grow your wholesale business and really land those dream buyers. So if this resonates with you, head to the link in the show notes for instant access. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today. If you are loving the show, I would be so beyond grateful if you would rate and review the podcast and share it with one of your biz besties to help spread the word. I hope that you absolutely crush your sales this week. I'll be back to chat with you next Monday.